everyone. I'm Alison Butler. Welcome back. Today, I'm really excited to introduce my special guest, Heather Stuart. Heather is a Bliss coach that helps parents escape burnout. So I'm a parent, you're a parent, Heather. Lots of people out there are parents, and
Yes.
welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here and spend this time with you. And yeah, it's going to be lots of fun.
I know it's going to be great, and I know you're going to have lots of helpful things to share with everyone. So first, the
Yeah.
first thing I always do is let's chat a little bit more about your personal story. Tell us about your life and what brought you to doing this work supporting parents.
Yeah. So I am also a parent. I have a 6-year-old daughter and I am a life coach that, as Allison mentioned, I work with parents, not specifically dealing with burnout, but it's definitely, especially now, a very important topic to help to help with. And how I got to this place is really I've been working in the travel industry for 15 years in a training kind of HR recruiting space. And just after I returned to work from having my daughter, after my 1 year mat leave, I really started to struggle in ways that I never could have imagined struggling. Like it was real. It was a real struggle. And I had some pretty severe depression as a child, as a teenager, I should say, like drugs, hospitalization, suicide attempts, all like the whole gamut. And after my 1 year of mat leave, getting back to work, about 6 to 8 months later, I could kind of sense the same sorts of patterns happening for myself. And I could see it coming. And although I'm thankful I went through that as a teenager, I never wanted to experience it again. And so I one day broke down in my car and I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this to her. I can't do it to me. I wanted to break the cycle. And I started doing a lot of things, a lot of learning. And that's really what started this for me is I just started learning about how my expectation and my perception of what parenthood was going to be like was very different than reality. And I kept trying to live up to my expectations and failing. And I was getting worse and worse feelings of not being good enough and not being worthy because I was failing at all these crazy expectations that I didn't even realize consciously that I had. And so I started shifting my mindset first, how I dealt with myself and the things that I did for myself. And my sister and I started a group on Facebook a few years ago and just trying to help people. And I really fed into that. I really like thrived on it. And it gave me such a different type of energy than the work I was doing in the travel industry. So that's when I decided, okay, I need to find something that I can do this on a day-to-day basis. Like this is who I am. I need to do it every day. I didn't know what it was called at the time, but then I realized that it's actually life coaching. And so I did schooling for life coaching, and my family and I just moved out to Newfoundland in September. So I'm a new import to this community, but I really, really want to help people. That's how I've grown up. I mean, as a child, all I wanted to do was help people and teach people. I'm an educator by passion, I think. And so that's really why I'm put on this earth, is to help people and to teach people and guide people and be that support person for them. So yeah, that's kind of how I'm here. And I met Alison at an event and we just started talking, and yeah, I'm just super excited to be here.
Yeah, it's so fabulous. And I love when sort of we can pull from our own life experiences. I think that's a real thing that draws me to other people that I connect with, right? It's like
Yeah.
from that thing that we're passionate about because we've lived through it, and then we're using
Yeah.
that to help and support other people, which is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
When we're recording this, it's January 2022. I'm just gonna say that because people could be watching or listening at any time. Who knows?
Anytime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I I'm sure, well, I know that you feel the same way, but I'm feeling people's stress and overwhelm right now. It's coming at me. I shouldn't say coming at me, but it's coming from everywhere. I think almost everyone is feeling stressed and overwhelmed right now. Why do you think that is, besides the most obvious reason that we've all been living through a pandemic for 2 years now?
Yeah.
Why are we so, as kind of a group of humans, why are we so overwhelmed right now?
I mean, besides doing it all, worrying about the safety and freedoms of ourselves, and like, there's just so much. But I think what it really comes down to is expectations. I touched on it when I was talking to you before, and the expectations we have on others as well as ourselves, and where we think we should be at. So stress is really caused when there's a gap in where we think we should be and where we actually exist. And so when we are feeling so stressed, it's because in some way we think we need to be doing or accomplishing something or being someone else who we actually aren't. And you're wanting a different reality than actually what is existing. And it's not accepting what actually is. And so I remember actually the very beginning of the pandemic, I was working with a client that was really angry all the time. She was really struggling with the pandemic. And this was almost 2 years ago that I was working with her. So she just flat out, like, straight went into the anger. But so she was super focused on the numbers and getting angry and upset with people. And she was doing all these things that were perpetuating her stress and her anger. And so we worked a lot together on acceptance, because what most people feel acceptance actually is that they have to like the outcome, when in reality, accepting is just taking life for what it is, neither good nor bad. It's just about not expecting anything different than what is the reality. So a lot of questions that I get is like, well, how the heck do you do that? First, you truly have to understand what's in your control. I mean, once you can really narrow down what's in your control and focus on what's in your control, then you can truly understand that that is what you need to focus on. That is where you can have expectations. But it's when you put expectations around things that you can't control, that's when the stress really begins to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And it can be a really hard pill to swallow when you say to someone, you have to stop focusing on what you can't control and focus on what you can control. When you hear yourself saying the words, I can't, that should be a trigger word for you to stop and shift your focus to what is in my control at this moment. And it can be a really hard thing because a lot of our society is really focused on what we can't control. It's kind of the safe spot for us because it means we don't actually have to do anything. Strangely enough, we kind of like focusing on things we don't have control over. But if you truly want to help yourself feel less stressed and have that acceptance, when you hear or feel yourself saying, I can't, switch it to what can I do? What can I do to better my situation? What can I do to lower my stress? What can I do to accept the situation?
Yeah, and I think that, part of what I do in my work a lot is you have to work on that, right? It doesn't.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It's not like you just magically, but I think a lot of us expect that. It's like, oh, I'm just gonna think it, so therefore I'm gonna do it, and it'll be fine. But no, like it's like this daily practice, and
it's a daily practice.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I want to talk a little bit about working and parenting, and sort of that work-life balance versus reality. And when you share your story, if you'll indulge me for a minute, I would like to share a little.
Of course, yeah. No, I want to hear
it. Just because I see a lot of myself on that journey. Like, it's different, but I also think I had very different expectations of what I was going to be able to achieve. And like in my life journey, I grew up with a mostly stay-at-home mom, right? And so I had these like really grand visions of what my ideal parenting would look like, right? I grew up with like homemade cookies all the time and baking. No, like really. And like, and someone always being there, you know, like to drive me places and stuff. And then, but you know, like my whole life growing up, it was all about like career, like education. And then like, I finally came to this place of parenting where those two worlds collided. And like my vision of recreating my childhood for my children like did not align with being a full-time working parent, or like for me now a full-time business owner that's like in it. And that has been a process for me of like just what it is, what you want it to be versus reality. So can we talk about that a little bit? Like, what do you see from people in terms of their expectations around
Yeah.
parenting and working?
Yeah. Well, I just kind of want to take a step back and just remind people that all behavior is learned. So our expectations of what parenting is going to be like is formed in those formative years and those years that we're growing up. So your mom and my mom, who is also mostly at home, who made it look so damn easy, is who we learned and how our expectations of what parenthood was formed. And so what I also know now is that even though my mom made it look pretty damn easy, she had some pretty major struggles. And that's also something that we need to look at making more realistic for our kids. I had no idea my mom was struggling, and because it wasn't normal or appropriate to talk about with kids at that point. And so that's something that I'm definitely focusing on with my little girl. But again, going back to the expectations, that's how I saw parenting to be like. And so I became a mom at what is probably considered a later stage in life. And so I had a career, and I knew I didn't want to give up that career because financially I can't really. Nowadays, there's not too many parents that can only have the one parent. But I also knew for myself that I wanted to have a career as well. But because I had my daughter at an older age, I had so much more time to conjure up this idea of grandeur of what parenting was going to be like. Like it down to the T. I was that person that's like, oh, I'm never going to do that. I'm never going to let my daughter watch 8 hours of television. I'm never going to let her eat cookies for dinner. Like I just had this vision in my head. And when it came down to going back to work, again, it came down to understanding what that expectation was and how I was failing that expectation and how that failure was feeling like to me on a conscious level. A lot of it was happening at first at an unconscious level, and I would just feel like garbage all the time and not really understand it. So I really had to bring that to the forefront of my consciousness and understand, oh, I feel like a failure because I'm expecting myself to be like my mom was when she was a stay-at-home mom, was hiding her struggles from her kids. And you know what I mean? So bringing those expectations to the consciousness was a big thing. But also another big thing that I talk about within my community is balance. The word balance is actually a farce.
Yeah.
Balance means suggests equality. And so not everything in our life is going to be equal, especially when we're so spread thin. So it's just about placing the right amount of importance and time into the things that are important to us. And that's what harmony is all about. I really stress the word harmony because balance is something that we strive for all the time. And we, again, keep failing at because we think that everything's going to be equal. But you and I have different core values, I'm sure. So really what it comes down to is getting to understand what our core values are and making sure that the actions and the energy and importance that we're putting into the things that we're doing is part of that core value.
I think that's so important. And I love the word harmony too.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that too, you know, it's like some days I do, you know, I'm a really great parent and then like I'm not doing other things. Some days I'm a really great business owner and like
Yeah.
not doing, you know, and it's like we're always sort of in that state of flux, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's also important when we look back at the expectations and how we were raised by our parents. I mean, they were in a completely different generation. Our parents and grandparents had different coping mechanisms. And so they did different things and they had different things on their plates than typically we have on our plates now. And nowadays, parents have so much more that they are doing than the parents that raised us, or the grandparents that raised them. So it's no wonder we're all really cracking under this pressure. I mean, 80% of parents now, working parents especially, say that they're burnt out. 80% of parents are now saying that they're burnt out. And that's, I mean, obviously the pandemic has just exacerbated all that, but there's so much more that we do now that parents before us didn't do, but yet we're holding ourselves accountable and expecting ourselves to have that type of lifestyle that they did before. And it's just not a reality. And so I think really letting go of that word balance is key, and just understanding, what does your harmony look like? What does your harmony feel like? And what's important to you, so you can make sure that you shift your time and energy into those things.
Cool. Love that. I'm really glad that you brought up that burnout statistic. I feel like we were all probably, or a lot of us were
teetering,
like almost there.
Yep.
The like descending of like everyone being in the same space all the time, trying to juggle. It's like broke everything open. But maybe this is such a great opportunity for so many of us to really have new eyes on that, right?
Yep.
And I think in the first go around, everyone was like, oh, I like this. I'm not commuting as much. I'm not this, or our family's together more. But now we're all just like, we've forgotten about that again. And we're just like, back in that scramble. But you mentioned burnout. And I'm curious if there are ways that burnout impacts parents differently, or if they're susceptible in a different way, or how does that maybe present for parents? What can you share with us around that? What does burnout look like for parents?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's 5 different stages to burnout. So depending on what stage you're at, you could present very differently. But I mean, stress and burnout is going to look different to every single person, because everyone carries their stress and their emotions differently. So, I see parents all the time in different stages, and I will say this, but moms especially are a little bit more vocal about their burnout. They're a little bit more open to the idea that burnout is actually happening to them. But I also feel like moms, it happens to them a little bit more quickly. Like the stages kind of progress a lot quicker. Whereas I think males, in my experience anyway, they tend to be as vocal about how much they are suffering. But I mean, there's 3 different ways that burnout can show up, and they can show up in any one combination of these 3 ways. There's emotional, there's behavioral, and then there's physical presentations of burnout. And it's a bazillion different ways. And it really just comes down to, how do you feel? Are you feeling like you want to hide under a rock while also feeling lonely at the same time? Like, it's one of those like conundrums of feelings that is so normal for so many people now. It's tragic in my eyes that so many people are at the 5th stage, where it's just chronic burnout. And this is what has propelled me into the service that I'm. Don't have to feel like your life is going to be garbage until your kids go to university. Like, there are small things that we can do on a daily basis that really can make big impacts to gradually get you out of that burnout stage. It's not about changing drastically your life. It's not about quitting your job. I mean, there's a big trend right now about the Great Resignation. I don't know if you've heard about it, but everyone's quitting their job and just staying home. And it's like, No. I mean, I appreciate that in some sense, but at the same time, I don't think everyone has to resign from their job in order to become happy.
Yeah.
It really doesn't have to be such a drastic thing. It can really just be little things that you do for yourself every day. And I mean, you're such a big advocate of self-care, which I absolutely love.
I am, and it's a daily process,
It's a
right?
daily process, and it can have really big impacts. It's small.
Yeah. I think okay, I got you back.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, I know you jammed there for a second.
No, I think that's good. And I think we kind of finished that thought. I mean, the self-care piece is so important. It's so important to be able to work on those things every
Yeah.
single day. And I say something similar. It's like, do we want to kind of keep struggling? Right? That was my big catalyst for change in my life. I thought,
Mhm.
I don't want to keep feeling like I'm struggling all the time. Like, what's the point of that? Like,
Yeah, right.
like keep going through the motions of every
Mhm.
day, just feeling like it's always a struggle. Like, to me, that's not what life's about. And so then it was like trying to find the small steps to take. And is every day great? No. Earlier today, I said I would like to put my head under a blanket right now. It's funny that you just used that reference. But it's things that we're working on. So,
Yeah.
Heather, what kinds of maybe small changes, a few, have you made in your own life as a parent that you feel like have helped you? That maybe you can just share with everyone.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing that I want to communicate is that nothing has to be drastic. I always better. It has to be all or nothing. And that's why this great resignation is such a big deal, because the only way they're going to be happy is if they quit their job. And really, all the changes that I made were a slow burn. You kind of have to be patient in this process. So I'll tell you how I started making the changes, and then I'll talk about kind of what I do now. But at the time when I first started, when I was in the car that day and I made the decision not to let this get me, I couldn't have handled a big drastic change at that point. I was in such a fragile state that I couldn't take anything bigger than that. So it really just began with trying to take a little bit of my time back. I looked at my day and I understood that not a lot of it could change. I was still going to work 8 hours a day. I was still going to commute 3+ hours a day. I was still going to parent. I was still going to have to do all that type of thing. So it was really just about looking at it from a different perspective and try and find 5 minutes here or there and change how I spent that time. And then once I was able and comfortable with taking the 5 minutes, then I was like, wait, there's 5 more minutes I could take. There's 10 more minutes that I can take. And it really just, because at the time, I just felt like I was flat out. I was like, I'm flat out. I'm so busy. And that was just the habit for me. But in order for me to break the habit, I needed to change my perspective, and I needed to start slowly. And once I was able to actually look at it from a different perspective, and once I started actually rolling the ball and being like, oh my God, okay, wait, I actually do have time. I have a lot of time that I can play with, that if I look back now, I have no idea what I was doing with that time. I was probably just sitting there thinking, oh my God, I'm so busy, like not actually doing
Oh,
anything
yeah,
for myself.
yeah,
But to the core, I was like, I'm just too busy to do anything. And that's the number one um, uh, thing that parents who want coaching with me say when they're kind of pushing back, I don't have the time. And it's like, okay, well, I'm going to help you find the time. I'm going to help you work with the time that you've got, realistically speaking. So again, I started changing 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then I changed a big chunk of time. I claimed back an hour, well, my hour and a half commute both ways. I claimed it back into a space of my learning. And that's something that has, one of the biggest things that's changed me was getting back to learning. I grew up in school, and I did some trade school after after high school. I got into my mid-20s and I kind of stopped learning. I had kind of been a little bit complacent in my career and my relationships. And I just kind of was like, okay, I'm just going to coast from now on. And I really wasn't reading much. I wasn't doing anything. And what I did is I claimed back that commute time, and I started listening to podcasts. And that was like, it like catapulted me into this crazy, amazing journey of self-discovery and learning and just understanding my strengths and my power. Like, learning from other people can really shine the brightest light on who you are as a person, and really guide you into the direction that you know you want to go into. And so learning was always something that I loved to do. And it was crazy that I stopped doing it for such a long time. But that's one of the biggest things that I advocate. I have this dorky saying, it's like ABL, always be learning. I am a student of the world, and I'm just trying to learn as much as I can. So that is one of my core values now, is just learn. I learn as much as I can. I talk to people. I read books. I'm perpetually in courses and challenges and like master classes. Like, I'm just trying to learn as much as I can. So, but as of right now, the biggest form of change that I have created in my life is self-care. Honestly and truly, I don't have a huge long ritual. I don't have like a 2-hour morning ritual that some people are able to have, because sleep is one of my also a very important thing to me. And my daughter's at a stage where she still wakes up a lot during the night. So I don't have a long ritual, but I do at least 20 to 30 minutes of movement every day. I love to meditate when I can. I'm not going to say I do it every day, but I would love to do it every day. I'm hoping once things calm down and I'm not homeschooling, I can get back to it every day. But learning is one of the biggest ways that I really take care of myself, and it's the biggest change that I made as I went through this journey.
Wow, that's amazing. And I think just the process for people to figure out what it is for them,
Yes.
what that big piece to hold on to for self-care might be for them will be an amazing journey for everyone.
Yeah.
Heather, thank you so much for being here with me. Before we go, I want you to share with us, where can we find you if we want to learn more?
Yeah, so I'm pretty active on Instagram, so you can follow me at Heather the Coach. Always sharing stuff in there. You can go to my website. It's connectingtoblisscoaching.com. And just one last thing I want to say, Alison, sorry.
Oh, yeah. And anything else you want to share with us before we go? That's great.
Yeah, so if you want to find me, Instagram or my website is probably the best way. You can also email me at heather@connectingtoblisscoaching.com. But I really just want to stress that, like, my journey to parenting was less about discovering who my daughter was and who she was, and has far more to do with who I am. And so I want to empower parents with that same belief, and that our kids are put in this earth, they're put in your world to help you grow and be a better version of yourself. And so your kids are your greatest teachers, they're your guiders. And I know for me, I'm so grateful and thankful that she's in my life. And I encourage you all to change your perspective around how you see your kids and learn from them, because they are such amazing teachers, and they will show you how you can be the best version of yourself. So that's just what I wanted to say.
I love that. What a great way to finish. Thank you so much for being here, Heather. I think that's a lot for people to learn from. I'm glad we've had an opportunity to chat today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Alison. And I'm so grateful that we've connected, and hopefully we'll continue to connect, and one day we'll be able to actually hang out again.
Okay, take care, everyone. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you. Bye.